name is Tate, and I'm on the Vancouver Startup Week team. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are grateful to be virtually gathered on Indigenous land, regardless of where you are joining us from. I'm grateful to be on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. I'm privileged to live, work, and play on these lands. First, I'd like to thank you for joining us for VSW 2021 and welcome to Into the Dragon's Den, hosted by BinBreeze. This session is also part of the VSW Founder Track and it's proudly supported by Sage Accounting. Sage knows you didn't start your business to become an accountant. Sorry to any accountants out there. Sage Accounting will keep your business organized and running smoothly, track your cash flow, send out invoices, and get paid quickly. So you can visit the Sage Accounting booth to access free guides and templates for starting your business finances the right way. Plus, get an exclusive VSW discount if you're ready to switch from Excel. During the session, if you have any questions for our speaker, please post them in the Q&A session of the Whova session. You can also upvote questions, but I'll pass the mic over to Taylor and we can begin.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you all for joining me, for those of us who are there. I thought today we'd start just by actually watching this 8-minute video of me on the show. Excuse me. And then we can get into some of the presentation about kind of how we innovated to create BinBreeze, and then answer your guys' questions about tips on, I got 10 tips to be on the show, and then I'll answer any Q&As that you guys might have about, maybe your own businesses are going on soon and you've got questions. I'd be happy to answer any of those. But to start, why don't I just, can everyone see my screen here? I'm just going to say, yes, you can. And I'm going to play this video and hopefully it's going to work out there.
And an entrepreneur from BC, hoping for that sweet smell of success.
Hello, Dragons. My name is Taylor McCartan. I'm from Victoria, BC, and I'm here today asking for $270,000 in exchange for 10% of my company, BinBreeze. Dragons, imagine this. You're coming home from a long day at the office counting your money, and you walk into your kitchen and you smell something disgusting. You follow your nose, and what do you know? Yet again, it's your kitchen compost bin. You open that up, oh, fruit flies everywhere, and they're touching everything, and they're breeding, and you just can't kill them all no matter what you do. Dragons, I am so very pleased to introduce to you the world's first indoor compost powder, BinBreeze. BinBreeze was scientifically designed at the University of Victoria to be applied directly on top of your food waste. Now, I could tell you lots more about BinBreeze, like, for example, we're in over 60 Canadian retailers, including Safeway, Sobeys, and most recently, Canadian Tire. But I'd rather have you smell it, so please smell your bins.
Okay.
Yeah, so go ahead and smell that up.
I don't know if I want to, but okay.
My bin reeks.
Okay.
Just gonna sprinkle it right on top of the food waste and then give it another try.
That worked actually.
Yeah, it's incredible at deodorizing.
This is like cat litter for
This
food.
is incredible.
Thank you. Mine's Holiday.
No, that's why. I've got the lavender. Oh, holiday smells good.
Is this like pumpkin spice garbage?
It's actually a blend of cinnamon, clove, and sweet orange.
So what else is in here?
Firstly, by weight, it's majority wood waste, but then there's two other key ingredients. The first one is a fossilized algae, commonly known as diatomaceous earth. And the second ingredient is a hyperporous mineral called zeolite, which I have like an exclusive use agreement with the supplier.
So this is a completely recycled product?
So it's a circular economy product. I had the inspiration for the whole idea reading that wood waste was the largest source of waste that's produced on Vancouver Island. So finding a use for that was what I wanted to do. But when I set out to just use sawdust, it didn't really work. So I walked up the hill, the university, I walked to the chemistry department, and I sat in the back of the class. I talked to the prof, and he's now a co-founder of the company. And
You weren't enrolled in the class,
I was doing my MBA at the University of Victoria in sustainable innovation, but I had nothing to do with
but
that.
you weren't in that chemistry class.
No,
So you snuck in the chemistry class to talk to the prof, and he became a co-founder.
I paid him first.
Fair enough.
But, we worked on like 100 different potential additives, and we nailed down to about 10, and then did another 6 months of testing, and then I sold $5,000 of it last year.
And what's your cost to manufacture?
So it's cost costing us $1.87.
Wow.
So
right.
Good for
we
you.
sell wholesale at $6.50, so we've got a 72% wholesale margin.
Whoa,
Direct to consumer is obviously substantially greater.
That's a beautiful margin.
My background is in sales. I've got grocery retailers taking product off the shelf to use in the back. I've got restaurants asking for industrial solutions.
Did you tell us what your sales were since?
I didn't on purpose. So the sales to date are 45,000. 5,000 of which was last year, 20,000 of which was online this year. But of course, we're just ramping on.
Now I know why you kept the revenues to yourself first. How'd you come up with the valuation?
So our valuation is based on our intellectual property as we're patent pending in both the US and Canada.
Yep.
In addition to that, it's also based on the fact that I've got proven traction, not only with major retailers, but major retailers in both grocery and hardware, which means that
Did you spend too much time in the chemistry class and not enough in the MBA class though? Or the math class?
finally my valuation is based on an aggressive 4-year pro forma that I know my team can execute on.
Listen, everyone puts together an aggressive pro forma. The bottom line is we can't invest in that. We have to invest in reality. Reality is 45,000 last year in sales. And what are you thinking for next year in your aggressive pro forma?
330,000.
So how do you get to 2.7 million?
This is a big idea, and I need a lot of money in order to get it to where it needs to be.
But
And,
Taylor,
we're
we need to
breaking-
have a return on our money too. We're investors.
Absolutely, but you don't get a circular economy unicorn in here every day.
Wow, that's going a little far. What's your repeat customer rate?
So I mean, it's a little hard to say. My first sales are only just kind of turning. So I
And?
actually, you got me. I don't know my number.
Truth of the matter is, you said your background is sales.
Yeah.
And you suck at sales. Because you really suck at this pitch. I gotta be honest. No, seriously, come on, man. He comes in with $2.7 million valuation. Then he tells you he's got an aggressive forecast, which is far from being aggressive, right? And he's wishy-washy. But the truth of the matter is, I don't want to be partners with somebody who's gonna go try and sell retail the way you're selling me on this product. So for that reason, I'm out.
Honestly, I'm not looking to be a co-founder. I'm looking to invest in businesses that are going to be growing 2 to 3 to 5x per year, not $50,000 to $75,000 per year. So for that reason, I'm going to be out.
I have the opportunity to pitch clean tech investors all the time, and so while I am grateful for this opportunity to come in here and pitch you guys, this is an opportunity for you guys to come in first because you get me now.
Have you gotten that kind of valuation?
Yes. Well, I mean, we haven't raised at that valuation yet.
So the answer is no then.
You know what? Listen, until you've got a check in your hand,
It's
you
not
haven't.
worth anything.
You can't say I'm worth that.
That's fair.
Look, Taylor, I really wanted to like this. The product works. I started my career in sustainability, but the valuations are off, the projections off, and just the pitch is off. So I gotta be out.
I'm like Michelle, I would have loved to have done this deal.
Well, I love both of you guys, and I'm very coachable. So please make me an offer.
But honestly, it's really disappointing to me. $270,000 makes it impossible
10%.
for us to make you an offer. You treat money like it's a hypothetical project. I'm out.
Taylor, I'll make you an offer buying your whole company up.
This is my heart.
All I'm saying, Taylor, that's what you put us in this position.
I
I don't
totally
know any
understand.
other way to do it. But for this reason right now, I'm out.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Dreamer, nothing but a dreamer.
Taylor, come back. I'm gonna make you an offer. Let's see how coachable you are.
Okay.
I'm gonna offer you $270,000 for 49% of your business.
Arlene, I would be very happy to accept that deal.
All right, we got a deal.
Thank you so very much.
Awesome, awesome.
Congratulations. I think it's a great product.
It's a great product.
Good luck with him, though.
Good luck with him,
The
though.
other dragons wrong. I can't wait.
Oh, so sweaty. All right. All right. So I'm going to go over to the actual presentation now. There we go. And I should probably turn my camera back on. All right. So thank you guys for watching. That was me getting roasted on the den. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, so basically I'm going to try and go pretty quick over some of the other presentation stuff I wanted to show you today, just around circular economy and how we came up with the idea. But I'll just get right into that and we'll go. But basically, yeah, I'm the founder of BinBreeze, which is basically a composting powder that gets rid of fruit flies and odors for people who use indoor compost bins. Basically, we had this idea because looking at the existing status quo, forestry waste in BC and elsewhere is often burnt for disposal, sometimes for energy, but often for disposal, which obviously is just putting that carbon, which it is carbon, into the atmosphere. And burning wood is pretty much the same as burning coal. It's just less condensed, right? Coal really is wood, or kind of a lot of coal really is wood that's been compressed and stuff like that. So it's actually not so great for the environment. So if you're, nothing wrong with burning a fire for recreational purposes or for heating, but you don't need to really be burning wood for disposal. It's just putting more stuff into the air. And similarly, recognizing that organic waste diversion was this big objective of the governments, of municipalities, and is really great for the planet. I wanted to create a way to make it easy for people to do that. And I thought maybe I could use this wood waste. My father being a carpenter and my grandfather being a carpenter, we burnt our wood waste growing up, right? While I grew up, I thought, well, it just doesn't make any sense because it would be a great additive for compost. And so basically, by going through this process, we had an objective to help composting facilities, help forestry companies who wanted to get rid of their waste and use more of the trees that they're taking out of the environment, and help drive up the organic waste diversion from municipalities and governments, and of course, help the planet. And so, yeah, what if we could use that waste to create happy composters, actually improve the soil, as well as reduce greenhouse gas emissions? And so this was kind of the concept that I took to a professor of chemistry at the University of Victoria, and he and I worked together for 2 years to, while I was doing my MBA, to create the product, which I then took to farmers markets after school, or as soon as I graduated. And since then, we really launched kind of in March of last year, and we're fortunate to be in pretty much 150 retailers now nationwide in Canadian Tire, and also making big headwinds. We're into Sobeys and Safeway, and lots more in the pipeline right now, in addition to building out our commercial business line. And so consumers benefit from not having a fruit fly problem and the odors, and really a more empowered composting experience. The composting facilities themselves actually benefit from the improved utilization and adoption of the improved soil itself, and the environment benefits by actually reducing the methane emissions of the waste itself, getting better soil, and ultimately generating jobs for the economy. And of course, we have patents and intellectual property stuff that I'll just kind of breeze over. But really, this whole circular economy project was kind of built upon looking at different stakeholders in kind of the entire chain of materials for around food waste, and being able to identify that we needed to please all these people and actually build our brand and everything around that recognition that we had it's kind of a very multifaceted kind of stakeholders, you could say, core stakeholders to our business. And so, our vision is really to create a world where no tree is wasted. So if we're going to take a tree out of the environment, we're going to use up all of the tree, because right now, generally about 50% of the material never actually, goes anywhere. It becomes waste through the milling and production process, and often gets burnt, which is totally unnecessary. And generally show that there's a better way, and also, by using a BC, making the forestry sector a little bit more sustainable, perhaps. And showing that the Canadian leadership around composting, because 80% of Canadians now have access to a household compost bin. In comparison, in the US, only about 15% of people have that access. But believe it or not, that's actually a 5 times larger market for our product, because the US is so much bigger than ours. But yeah, so top tips for Dragon's Den. Number 1 is know who you're pitching. I actually have a slide for just this one. But when you're going to go onto Dragon's Den, you're going to have the auditions, where there's a call for auditions when you go in there. And when you're pitching, you're not actually just pitching your business. You're pitching your business to producers and you need to have an entertainment value proposition. So for me, my entertainment value proposition was making the dragons smell stinky compost. And the producers wouldn't even smell it because I brought in some stinky compost. But for me, it was making the dragons smell stinky compost on camera. And that was supposed to be the big entertainment value of my, kind of clip. That's what our goal was. I think our clip was a little more exciting because of my valuation and some other stuff that happened. But that was the goal that actually got me to the next stage and past the initial audition. And so at that point, you're going through this whole thing and you're going out to Toronto and you're really excited and you're really nervous because you're like, oh my God, it's actually going to happen. I couldn't believe it. And which is, by the way, a very motivating thing, that period between knowing you're going to be on the show and actually being on the show. You work really hard because you want to put yourself the best foot forward. But then you actually get like a 60 to 90 second pitch, and that's all you get for your opportunity to talk and be on camera. That's the first 60 to 90 seconds. And then after that, it's just question and answers. And so I was actually in the den for probably 35, 45 minutes, but that clip was only 8 minutes of that segment. And so what you'll notice is that there was my opportunity to talk at the beginning of that, and then they will show that on the camera. But then after that, they go into Q&A, and they basically are going to cut as they like in order to have a really entertaining, episode, which of course is what you want, because if you're entertaining these episodes, entertaining, it will make the cut, because just because you film doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be on TV with the show. They still don't always show all the pitches. And so you want it to be really entertaining. And so, and basically for that 60 seconds pitch, that's actually really your only opportunity to speak to the customers that you might have if you're pitching like a service or product business for the masses. And so for us, we really tried to focus our initial, few seconds on what the product does and kind of connecting on being fun in an emotional way around fruit flies and stinky compost bins in the home. And we also tried to be, pretty kind of humble and green and reflect our sustainable values. I actually failed to say a key portion of my first 90-second or 60-second pitch that was around our circular economy sustainable stuff. And so that didn't obviously make the cut because I didn't say it. So you got to make sure you practice that first 60 seconds endlessly. I think my problem was I didn't sleep the night before, but at 4 a.m. in the streets of Toronto, walking around, listening to myself and talking to nobody was basically how I prepared. I booked a really nice hotel, so I got lots of sleep, and then I didn't use it. So that's how it goes. Anyway, and then after that first 60 seconds, you're into the dragons pitch where you're actually pitching your business to investors. And so, whereas, having done pitch business and my business to investors many times now, you have that opportunity to control. You go through a deck, you take them on a journey through your business and what it means. But for the dragons, you just had that 60-second pitch, and then it's Q&A. And so you don't actually have that opportunity to showcase your business as an investment vehicle that you might have in other kind of investment pitches because of the context. However, they will of course dig deep into your business with questions, and you need to know your numbers. The numbers that there were a whole bunch of other numbers-based questions that came up in that pitch that you didn't get to see because it wasn't included in the cut. And a lot of talk about the business and the industry and things like that. And a lot of really friendly banter, because that's what I really tried to keep it like a positive, fun, lighthearted note with them, because I felt like they were less likely to perhaps savage me with the cut in that sense. So that was number one, know your pitching. That's the only one that has its own slide. But remember to appeal to their objectives. And so when I say appeal to their objectives, I mean the objectives of each individual dragon. What do they want to represent as themselves to the business? So an easy example here would probably be Michelle Romanov, who is the founder of Clearbank and who helps fund startups through her own hybrid revenue model. And so she wants the opportunity to pitch that. And so, you don't want to say, I don't want to do that, Michelle, ahead of time, because you want her to give her the chance to actually speak to that so that they can include that in the shop. And actually, that was one of the things that did unfortunately get cut from my episode, was her speaking to Clearbank and how we could work together. But anyway, and then always be polite and humble. So even when the dragons say they correct you and it's something that's incorrect, you got to be really smart about how you choose to correct them, because there's a huge audience watching, right? And so, my strategy was to go in there and be as polite and as humble as I could, because I felt like that was going to put me in the best light. and might make them, they might be less willing to, I don't know, stab a sword through my heart, how they cut it. So, which they didn't. Honestly, I'm actually really happy with how everything came out. I'm now in retrospect, perhaps. But anyway, and then yeah, make them laugh and smile, because that's what you want to do. And so I was a little cheeky and forward. I did tape my nipples. Full disclosure, you know, it's a cold in there, and I'm nervous, and I just didn't want to think about that. So that happened, and I'm glad I did. Finally, yeah, social purpose is a layer of protection. So, you know, if you're going in there with a company that has a social purpose, which I personally believe all companies should have, and you're really showcasing that, that means it's less likely that they're going to want to bash you, because, you know, you're a good person. And they don't necessarily want to take like the most charitable, or, you know, Mother Teresa, and you know, beat her down on her business model on the show, because that wouldn't necessarily be good for them either. So recognize that you do have a layer of protection by being, you know, a green company with a mission. And yeah, there's really only time for one story in there, so you don't have the opportunity to, you know, frame all of these different things. With that first 60 seconds, we talked about compost bins. We didn't talk about the forestry industry becoming more sustainable, or the composting facilities that we work with, or too much about the effect on the soil, or the fact that using BinBreeze reduces the methane emissions, because those weren't the core value propositions that we needed to communicate for our business with this short amount of publicity that we're going to get from this. Practice, practice, practice. I was going to just tell my story about wandering the streets of Toronto like a crazy person the night before. So I already told that. And then sleep. Yeah, you know, I didn't, but I think you really should. And I think I would have done a lot better if I had. So there you go. That's my Taylor McCartan's tips on Dragon's Den here. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there's a Q&A function with this whole thing going on.
Thanks for sharing your story and your tips. We do have a few questions. Our audience is wondering why you chose Dragon's Den and not private investors, since you were already talking to some.
Yeah, great question. The answer is I didn't have to choose. You know, as a startup, if you're passionate about your business and you know that you've got something, you kind of have the ability to be more flexible. Like, yes, we were talking to some investors prior to going on the show, and I'm glad that we had that, because that experience really helped me be on the show. And afterwards, we talked to other investors as well. And so the way that it works on the show is you need to go in, you know, with the true honest intent to make a deal. And we certainly did. It was only after the deal that we had been made, which was, you know, me selling basically half the company, that, you know, I had time to kind of come to terms with that. And we, you know, there's a whole bunch of due diligence that Arlene's people, of course, wanted to put us through, and we did. And we went through all those stages. And at the end of the day, at that time, we basically had enough goodwill built up with other investors that it didn't make sense for us to take the deal with Arlene anymore. And we could get much better terms elsewhere. And more importantly, the investors who did come in came with their own strategic resources as well, that Arlene would have definitely brought, but we would have had to go through a lot of different steps in order to work with her and work with District Ventures, who's like an amazing VC firm, and who we never had a bad word between us. You know, like, it was all very warm, and they were very understanding about everything that we did. So yeah, I mean, I think the truth is I didn't have to actually pick between the both, and I got to use, I guess this is kind of what Dragon's Den wants to avoid, which is business people coming on and getting a platform for their own businesses without actually having to commit. But I went on, and honestly, with pure intentions. And so I think that's why it worked out. But I do think they actually do screen for people who just want to go on for TV. So you got to have a business in there, and you got to really be raising capital if you want to go that far.
Awesome. I'm getting a lot of questions about Dragon's Den.
That's okay. You can ask. Go ahead.
Yeah. So our attendee is asking, what was the due diligence process like? If you're able to share, like, what happens
Not actually.
after?
I'm bound by a contract, so I'm not allowed to share too much. But basically, you know, we opened everything up to them. You know, we didn't open up our like necessarily everything IP related, but we opened everything on the business and the business performance and all that. And so, which I think is, yeah, totally necessary. So.
Makes sense. I have another question that is, what is it like working with Arlene?
I wish I I wish I could really answer that, because I wish I was working with her. But I'm certain it's great. And, you know, one of the things that I did prior to being on the show is call up all of the show winners and try and talk to them about their experience. And I really learned a lot from that I can't share here, but about who is a good partner and who is not a good partner. And so I was really excited to work with Arlene. But I mean, I was disappointed that it didn't work out. And even when we kind of closed the door there, I tried to jam my foot in it so I might be able to open it up again later. So, yeah.
Awesome. And I have another question is, how much of the pitch did they actually show? What else did you pitch?
Yeah, well, like I said, I was in there for 45 minutes. So I only had that first 60 to 90-second segment to talk about my product. And we made a decision to only go in with our core products and not some of the other ideas and stuff that we had, you know, in our pipeline, because we wanted to keep it simple for people to understand what we were and what we were doing there. And we, with so little camera time, we didn't, want to go out too much to it. So, yeah, but that being said, there's a lot that was cut that I wish I'd seen, or I wish I'd been there talking about sustainability and our company and my journey and my parents and you know, how I came up with the idea and who Harmon the scientist was and that kind of stuff. It's really sad that they can only show so little, and I wish they put the full thing on just for internet purposes. I bet they get a ton of ad revenue, you know, if they had the full episodes there. But I think that's their creative you know, process, that they want to make an entertaining episode. And I gotta say, my episode was very entertaining. I didn't tell a lot of people about, because you're not supposed to tell anyone about the result, really. So a lot of people thought I didn't get a deal when I was walking out. So it was fun to watch my family's reactions, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. So what's next for BinBreeze? Like, what is kind of your 3 to 5 year goal, and what are you excited about?
We've just been received a grant from Sustainable Development Technology Canada to help validate, you know, all of our findings and how we make composting operations, you know, greener and more effective, and composting pickup programs more efficient, which we're really excited about. So that's definitely on the horizon. It's actually not my job within the company. We've got, you know, 7 full-time equivalents now, from manufacturing people to operations people to R&D, and then I'm sales and marketing with some awesome co-op students from UVic. Recommend their co-op program. And yeah, so basically, you know, we're now nationwide and Canadian Tire, and we're continuing to kind of build out our market, especially where there's less awareness about BinBreeze, whereas here in Victoria and in BC, we've got a bit more of a following already built. And then, you know, moving into the commercial side as well. So bars who don't want to deal with fruit flies in their customer areas, and restaurants, anywhere that's really got food waste that's sitting for a long time, is basically a great opportunity for us to address that and address the emissions that waste is producing, and while simultaneously making it easy for people to have in their operation of their business. And then similarly, yeah, you know, how we integrate with composting facilities and compost pickup programs is still something that, you know, we're not sure if we're going to be disruptive or a great amendment to the industry, or how exactly it's going to fit, but we're working with a ton of different partners in there to determine that. So yeah, we just started selling into the US. So, you know, sky's the limit. You know, it's something that everyone needs pretty much all over the world. There's food all over the world and food waste all over the world, and wherever there's food waste, it shouldn't be going to the landfill. So we want to make those composting programs really, really popular, and especially into the US in the coming years when they have already struggled to recycle. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing. And do you have any tips for like, I guess, everyday people who, you know, we have a lot of food waste? Do you have any tips for, you know, being more
Managing their own
sustainable?
food waste? Yeah, sure. Well, I think honestly, the number one, I cheated to become sustainable. I started dating a vegan, and she's awesome at it. And so that made things a lot easier for me to make my own adoptions, which by the way, vegan food, oh my God, tastes the same. Can't like, totally don't miss it. I still eat meat occasionally, but I try to be more plant-based now. But anyway, so I think number one thing is, yeah, cut down on your meats and really help. But if you're talking about household kind of compost bin management, I would say my top tips there, if you're using BinBreeze, for example, putting some BinBreeze in the bottom of their bin will really help maintain the integrity of your compostable bag. So that's a big tip. But more generally, I think it's understanding where fruit flies come from. Fruit flies don't come from your neighbors, they come from your fruit. People don't like to hear it, but there's a invasive species of fruit fly called Drosophila suzukii, which is a very unique species that's come to everywhere now around the world. But basically, they deposit their eggs and larvae in fruit that is still on the tree, and we bring that fruit through grocery stores and into our homes, and we put fruit skins in our compost bin, which is like the perfect wet, warm place to breed. And so you go and open your compost bin the next week, and there's fruit flies everywhere. Well, that's because they were on your fruit. And if you really want to make it just extra gross for you today, if you ever think about when you're eating like some grapes or something, and then you taste one grape and it's just off, yeah, you probably just ate a fruit fly. Yeah. So there you go. Don't look so traumatized.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, just to gross everyone out at home. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Let me just check. Do you have any, I guess, looking back at your past years, like, do you have any lessons learned or tips that you would give to people who are starting off their own business, considering different investment? Yeah.
I think for me, coming out of the business school program, there was a lot of theory, and it's frustrating for me because I wanted to start my business while I was at school, and all my profs were like, "You do it right after," like they're not there to guide your business through the program. They're there to help you learn what you need to know in order to like succeed. And so I had all this time to do all this planning and theory ahead of time, but not all of that was basically like not worthless. It was very valuable, but it felt worthless as soon as I was actually out there selling the product and talking to people and doing it. And so I think the number one lesson I would say to people is like, I shouldn't have waited all that time. I should have been selling our prototypes to customers and talking to them about them rather than spending all this time doing R&D and then introducing the product. It's much better to just be iterative and go out there and talk to people and sell your stuff and be open about your feedback and be humble. And when you're talking to them, like I went to people and I didn't say, here, buy my fruit fly powder. I said, I want to help you solve your fruit fly problem. Can you talk to me about it? And if it wasn't for all those conversations, I wouldn't be here. So I think the big thing is to go out and actually talk to your customers and don't get caught up in, the big market dynamics and theory and stuff like that, because I'm still only today starting to use some of the stuff I learned in my MBA. And I still haven't used a lot of it, but I think I probably will in the next few years because it's all for stuff for big companies and I'm not a big company yet. We're still very small. So just get started, because like it's just it'll be so much faster. It'll be so much easier if you just start and don't try and make the perfect plan, because there's no such thing. Just get out there and talk to people. Yeah, hope that was helpful and not just like really cliche.
No, I think it's a really good thing that we've been hearing, just talking to customers, really getting that fit, but also iterating on what we currently have.
Cool.
Then for those who are hoping to learn more about circular economy, sustainability, do you have any resources that you would recommend?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, sustainability, I strongly recommend if you're looking at starting any company that has any sort of sustainable value proposition, looking at the clean tech accelerators across Canada, which are absolutely amazing. If you're thinking about starting a company, understand that sustainability is like it's like the next industrial revolution, where literally everything has to be remade in order to meet, what we need to as a planet to survive. And so, like, in my opinion, when I was starting a company, sustainability wasn't just about my values; it was more about being ahead of a curve. And that's how what good people, business people, do is they start industries and businesses and industries that are growing. And so, yeah, I recommend it from that side of things. For other local circular economy stuff, Like guaranteed, if you're going to Google your city, there's a, you know, a recycling place that you can go and look and buy used stuff and things like that. And, you know, there's reports that your city and the province will put out about waste that's produced. And you can look at all the waste and you can think, guess what? That stuff's free. You know, when do you ever get anything for free? If you're starting a business and one of your inputs is zero, and I'm not saying it's always zero, for us there's transportation and other fees, but is one of your inputs is zero, it's a lot easier to have a high margin on your product when you're selling it to someone else eventually, because your input was so low, because it's waste. Not to mention the fact that the government will hopefully one day subsidize, you know, your business because of its economic and ecological benefits. And that people will be more likely to support you because of who you are and the mission that you're on. There's just so many reasons to get involved in an environmentally focused business now. I can't imagine like going out and trying to work for a plastic company today. It's like or even an oil company or an oil drilling company, and like all of these companies, they live in they put over a filter that says that the world's going to be something that it's not.